What's going on YouTube? So of course these days trucks are getting more and more expensive, and typically car reviewers, we end up showing off the fully loaded examples of all the models, but I'm really happy today that Chevy has actually provided us with the base trim level of the all-new Chevy Colorado. This is the WT, which stands for work truck. So we're gonna go ahead and dive in and take a detailed look at what this base work truck is gonna give you.
Now, one area where the work truck does change is under the hood. So with this new Colorado, you have three different engine outputs. You have the same 2.7 liter turbo 4-cylinder, but it does make different horsepower depending on what trim level you go for. So if you go for this WT model, you will have the basic setup, which is going to make 237 horsepower, 259 pound-feet of torque. It's going to be paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission. You have standard 2-wheel drive, optional 4-wheel drive. And as far as the fuel economy figures, Chevy has not released those figures at this time, so we don't fully know what type of fuel economy this Colorado is going to get, but I would expect it's better than the current generation model with the V6.
So when it comes to this all-new Colorado, basically every single version of it does have a little bit of a different design. Now, what we have with the work truck, a lot of this is going to be just basically the matte finish plastic all through the front end design. Now you'll notice that this specific example is finished in black. So actually all of this kind of blends together in a surprisingly nice looking way. It really doesn't stand out as looking cheap or anything like that. Up in the front, you're gonna notice, of course, large Chevy emblem right there. I'm also noticing the hood has a really nice shape to that as well. And let's take a look at our headlights. Now, of course, this is a more affordable truck, so we're not gonna have the LED lighting. That's gonna require going up to one of the higher end trim levels. We just have the halogen lighting through here. The same is gonna go for the fog lamps, no fog lamps on this work truck model. Now, when it comes to the ground clearance, the work truck and the LT, those are gonna be the lowest to the ground of the group. 7.9 inches of ground clearance for these. The upper end trim levels are the ones that come with a 2-inch lift for a little bit more ground clearance and more off-road capability. Now, one of the ways you might identify that this is the work truck is gonna be the wheel option here. So this is a 17-inch steel wheel. Of course, this is a more basic looking thing, but a lot of people actually really like this look because it looks tough and it looks purpose built for a job, which is what work truck is for. Now, one of the nice things that Chevy is throwing in with this new generation of Colorado is that you can get the safety package on all the trim levels, including this work truck. So even though this is a basic model, we still do have heated mirrors with blind spot monitoring.
Now, one of the things I want to point out for this all-new generation of Colorado is that it is only available in this configuration that you see right here. This is the crew cab 4-door setup, and you do have the 5-foot bed. Now, that doesn't change depending on what trim level you go for, so even if you go for this WT model, that means you're still going to have the same configuration as any other Colorado. Definitely a nice thing. Now, onto the side, we do have our 4x4 branding, and then working our way around to the rear design, we have a nice trucky look. Now, it's not overly styled or anything like that, but Chevy is stamping into the tailgate, Chevrolet stamping here. And then as far as the tailgate itself, it does have a lot of nice 3-dimensional designs to it. So you have kind of a jut in here, it kind of juts out. I do like the way it looks overall. Now, your taillights are going to be pretty much the same story as the headlights up in the front. They're going to be fully incandescent taillights, so no LED components for the work truck, as you would expect. You can get that on higher end trim levels. Down in the lower bottom area, though, I will point out this is actually body color. Quite nice to see that on a less expensive truck like this. But guys, you buy a truck for the bed, so let's go ahead and check that out. So if you pop this open, you will notice that we have a very nicely dampened tailgate, almost a little bit too much so. And back here, you're gonna have a traditional truck bed. It's 5 foot, as I mentioned earlier. You have a nice lining on this particular model. I don't see a lot of lighting going on for the work truck model, but you do still have some tie downs on the side. But this Colorado has a really unique feature in the bed, and it's actually in the tailgate itself. So if you unlock by these two little levers, you'll notice that you can actually flip this up, And this is actually 45 inches wide, 4 inches deep, and it does also have a drain in the bottom. So you can pretty much put a lot of different things in here, maybe like a tailgating thing where you have your drinks laid out with some ice and you can also drain it. So that's certainly very nice, especially to see on a more basic trim level like this work truck model. Now, as far as other things, you do have some measurements here in the tailgate as well if you're doing it for actual truck-like things. And I did almost forget to mention you do have the side step for access, easy access into the bed itself, so that's nice as well. Now, Drew alluded to this earlier, but the safety systems are very improved for this all-new Colorado, especially when you're talking about a more basic trim level like this. You're going to have 3 out of 4 of your active safety systems as standard on every single Colorado model, and you can also option on that last one, which is adaptive cruise control, on all of the trim levels. So this particular work truck does actually have adaptive cruise control as well. But guys, that's gonna wrap up the exterior design of this work truck Colorado. Now let's check out the usable interior.
Let's go ahead and get inside the WT. So here's the key. We don't have smart entry. You gotta go up at least one more trim level, but we do still have keyless entry, so you can just press the unlock there to hop inside the truck. And welcome inside. As you can see, the bones of the interior really looks almost identical to the higher end models. What we have with these seats is gonna be a cloth seat, of course. Nice comfortable seat, feels nice and durable. It is gonna be manual adjusting as standard equipment, although on today's example, we do have the available power adjusting seat. But let's go ahead and climb inside. Of course, this is designed for work, so as such, the materials are gonna be more utilitarian. That means we're gonna have a kind of rubber texture here on the armrest portion. All the rest of this door trim is gonna be hard touch through here. Looks like the windows are none of them, well, auto down for the driver only. So we go to the upper dashboard. This is all gonna be a hard touch plastic through here and down through here. But I will say everything does feel very solid and well put together. Now, surprisingly, we do actually have push button start even on this model, which is something that wasn't available on the previous gen. But guys, take a look at that. The technology really is what stands out to me inside of this work truck because it is exactly the same as the other trim levels. That means you have the 8-inch digital gauge cluster, which is really clear, really crisp looking, and just super nice that that's going to be included even here on the base trim level. Now, as we pull back to the steering wheel, we have a new Chevy design, very handsome look to it. Actually looks like it's leather, but this is actually the urethane, so it is hard touch. As far as the wheel itself, we do have tilt, but we don't have telescoping on this trim level. Let's also take a look at interior storage. I'm gonna open up our center console. Little tray there. Oh, nice and deep. Plenty of space. We do have a 12-volt outlet inside. 2 big cup holders right there. And then right here we have a large area for your phone to rest. You can option on a wireless phone charging pad, and we've got 2 USB ports. Now checking out the shifter. Nice traditional style. Pull back for drive. You have little toggles on the side if you want to control it manually. And when we go into reverse, check that out. We have a 360-degree camera system. So this is yet another instance of Chevy allowing you to kind of customize whatever trim level you want to choose with the features that you need to get the job done. So if you're on the construction site, you need the 360 camera, you can add that to this model. And then back behind that, we also have our electronic parking brake. Rising above here, climate controls. These are going to be manual adjusting, so you just, turn it up for your fans, change your zones right through there. Nothing too complicated. And then we have the big display. Just like with the gauge cluster, this is the same display you get in the other trim levels. Really nice looking. We have great graphics, good resolution, all the features because this is the Android Automotive interface kind of baked in, so you have a lot of good features like even Google Maps. That's right, you have Google Maps on the base trim level. Color me impressed by that. And lastly, with the front of the cabin, manual dimming mirror, We do have some incandescent lighting, and of course you won't find a sun.
Now let's take a quick look at the rear seat of the work truck. This, of course, is going to remain unchanged from the other trim levels of the Colorado. A little over 34 inches of legroom, 34.7 inches of legroom, 38 inches of headroom. Plenty of space for a moderate-sized adult, although if you're really tall, you might have a little bit of trouble. I do want to point out, though, let's talk about some of the features. Here in the center, you do still have cup holders, which I think is nice, and you're also going to have vents. So even on this base trim level of the Colorado, you do still have vents in the rear, which is certainly very nice.
All right, there's 60, and we're mountain climbing.
Yep, definitely not a fair 0 to 60
No.
test, that's for sure.
Right, so we're of course on a very limited time frame. We're just doing a quick video with this. We're taking it on a quick drive and just kind of seeing, how does this compare to the other versions? Is it going to be a problem, for instance, choosing the base engine, or will you want to go for the higher displacement, or not higher displacement version, higher horsepower version? Honestly, power is pretty good. I'm not seeing any problem with this. This is very typical feel for the class, compared to the Frontier, the Tacoma, the Ranger, the things that you're gonna cross-shop this with. Absolutely has a very normal feel, plenty of power.
Yeah, it's going to be rated, this is the 2.7 liter turbo 4-cylinder, 237 horsepower, 259 pound-feet of torque for this particular version. This is what comes standard on the WT and LT trim levels of the Colorado. Now, if you go for the other versions, you have 310 horsepower. So, not 100 horsepower, but say 75 horsepower advantage, for going for one of those trim levels. But I'd say it's totally not necessary, like Drew said. Another thing,
especially not when you're choosing the work truck.
Right, exactly. Especially for a base trim level, it's not bad at all. Hey.
Honestly, you really feel the torque.
Yeah.
That's what I'm liking a lot about this turbo engine, is that torque really gets you off the line nicely.
I also will point out that this 4-cylinder, if you're, dang it, it's a 4-cylinder instead of V6. Listen to it, it doesn't sound bad at all. It sounds very trucky, sounds rugged and cool. So I don't think you're going to have very many problems with the way this sounds. All right, guys, so we've switched to an LT, and this does have the 2.7 liter, what Chevy calls Turbo Plus. So this is the higher output version of the 2.7 liter turbo 4-cylinder motor, 310 horsepower for this one as tested.
So LT, of course, is the next trim level up the structure from the WT. This is, if I had to guess, probably going to be the volume seller. You get a little bit more niceties on board, certainly inside of the cabin and with the outside in terms of the design, but you're still not breaking the bank. Now, like Mason mentioned, we do have that available option, which is the upgraded engine. LT, just like the WT, does come standard with the lowest horsepower option. I keep wanting to say displacement. Lowest horsepower option for the 2.7 liter turbo 4-cylinder.
And this engine option, the Plus, is available on the WT trim level. So if you need that additional power, you can get that even on the base trim level of this model. 310 horsepower, like I mentioned earlier, but the really big thing is 390 pound-feet of torque. And as you'll see throughout this drive, the accelerations, the torque just really pushes you back in your seat.
Let's talk about the other aspect of the powertrain. That would be your 8-speed automatic transmission. At this point, we've floored it a few times. We've also casually accelerated.
Yeah.
And in both circumstances, handles it really nicely. I'm noticing just how silky smooth it is, accelerating just at a normal pace like you will actually be doing in real life around town and stuff like that. Really nice and smooth. Some of the more affordable trucks, they can kind of skimp on the transmission sometimes. This one feels really nice.
Now, as far as how that power is put to the ground, for the WT and LT trim levels, you do have the option of going for two-wheel drive to lower that price point down. If you go for the Z71 or Trail Boss, it's going to be locked into four-wheel drive, as you would expect for those more off-road focused models. Now, we're just cruising along here, going about 30 miles an hour. A lot of the roads on this particular test drive loop are going to be lower speed, but I want to talk about the ride quality, because that's something we can definitely discern with this new Colorado. I am very impressed with it. We've been driving it around for a bit at this point, and the ride quality, it soaks up the bumps. These are very rough roads. As you can see, the texture itself is very rough, and it just does a good job. I think it's definitely at the upper end for a mid-sized truck for sure.
Our start-stop system's nice and smooth. I don't think it would bother you in real life, but you do have a defeat button if you want to turn it off. That torque just feels great. You know, you just punch it, just gets you right up to whatever you're trying to get to. You know, 30 miles an hour, sure. You're just gonna shoot right up there. You don't always have to be going 0 to 60, you know, like, that's kind of the power of torque, right? You know,
0 to 30.
It feels good even when you're going slow, because you have that nice push back into the seat.
Yeah, and the 390 pound-feet, I mean, for a mid-sized truck, that's really exceptionally good. I think that would honestly be fine almost for a full-size truck.
And of course, they're going to sell the version that has 430 pound-feet of torque, but that's only going to be in the ZR2.
And one thing I do want to point out is that fuel economy is not quite available just yet for this new Colorado. I would expect that the fuel economy would improve over the current generation Colorado. That would be, you know, what I would think, but definitely no guarantees there, because the EPA has not fully tested this model yet.
And since I'm looking at it, I do want to point out this one little quirk that I noticed earlier. This actually does not have a headlight stock like most other vehicles. You make the headlight adjustments right here in the main touchscreen. It's this little button here at the top. So that's an interesting thing that I'm noticing, because we do have a different kind of switchgear here, and it doesn't include the headlights anymore.
All right. That torque can get you up to speed real quick. All right, let's get our sound level reading going 55 miles an hour. We're sitting at 59.5 decibels. Now, do keep in mind we are going up a hill, so the engine's slightly revved up. Also, we are in California, and it is very windy, so that's kind of a triple whammy there. But 59.5 decibels is actually not too bad of a reading for this Colorado. I think these mid-sized trucks tend to land on the higher end when it comes to the noise entering into the cabin. I think this feels pretty hushed for this all-new model. And you know what time it is? It's airball and slam dunk time. So let's go ahead and do that, even though we're here in California. So for our slam dunk, especially for this review right here, we're focusing on the more basic trim levels of the Colorado. You know, the WT, we're currently driving around in the LT, so you can get a sample of both engine configurations, but the WT really throws in a ton of standard features. I love the technology that Chevy is throwing in here. It's much better than a fully loaded Tacoma for sure. So you're going to have a big technology emphasis for this all-new model. I think that's a very good thing, especially for a basic truck.
And on the airball side of things, we're going to say the headlights. Yes, it is the most affordable version, but look, it's 2023. LEDs don't cost that much. We have, you know, LED lighting in our home, everything. It doesn't cost that much. We'd really appreciate having some LED lights on this. You can, I mean, there's just kind of a safety thing. It's certainly much, much better to have LED lights because you can actually see where you're going better.
Now, why would you buy a work truck Colorado? Well, that's pretty obvious. It's because of the attractive price point. And indeed, you are going to have one. Trucks just keep getting more and more expensive. Really, really expensive. I just emphasized that twice. And this work truck model is going to start at $29,200. So yes, under $30,000 for a crew cab pickup truck. Certainly a very good deal, especially if you go for that fully based model. Now, this particular tester does have a few options. Like Drew said, they allow you to customize this Colorado to pretty much whatever way you want it. So we have several options like the technology package, we have the WT convenience package, we also have the safety package, bed liner optional on this model, and then the destination charge of $14.95. This tester as equipped is $37,210, which honestly is still not a bad price point for what you're looking at with this WT Colorado. But guys, if you enjoyed watching this video, we would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below. Of course, this is just a quick walk around of the WT trim level of the Colorado. We look forward to testing this model out fully when we get it back home in Lexington for a full Car Confections full review. So subscribe for that. Also follow us on TikTok and Instagram, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.